Life Audio.
Today on Talk About That, John gets frustrated with ChatGPT and wants to be a monk, except for the silence part. Meanwhile, I stay at a hotel with a fancy television and think my wife may have stolen several pair of slippers. Plus a conversation about prosperity, giving, and surrender. Today's episode is not sponsored by Bobbing for Apples, the Halloween party game that's also an interrogation technique. But first, a word from our actual sponsor.
We're back another week at Talk About That. I'm John here with my buddy Johnny, and Johnny, it's going to be quite the voyage today.
Oh yeah, you got a voyage?
I don't know. I'm setting high expectations.
Oh, I thought you meant like outside of the show.
Well, no, are we?
You mean the show is a voyage?
Yeah, we're on.
This was a metaphor.
Yeah.
You should be an author, dude.
I tell you, I'm very deep.
You got talent.
Very deep.
You got a way with words, my friend.
Tell you what.
You paint a picture.
The English language is my playland, Johnny.
Yeah.
It's
There was those when you do a video. I don't know if you've had this happen, but when you do, because you don't do Facebook, but when you do Facebook now, the Meta AI will summarize the comments for you.
Oh.
So like, especially if you get like, let's say you get a video that has like 30 or 40 comments on it, it will summarize those into like a synopsis on top of the comments. So if you scroll down past the video of a video that has a lot of comments, it'll be like, Meta viewers were delighted by Jonnie W's, blah, blah, and it's all AI. And it's just funny what they will decide the comment thread, the general vibe is of the comment thread. Some remarked like a quote from somebody's comment, while others said blah. And one of them said something like, "You can see the pictures as the words form out of his mouth," or something like that. And I was just like, no one said that.
Surely
That's
not.
just AI.
Yeah, you can't
He's a
trust
wordsmith.
AI. Yeah. AI, man. I tell you, I'll talk to Chat. I will. I'll be like,
I know.
I don't understand.
Say, oh, Chat.
I don't understand why you keep doing this.
Yeah.
But I've learned to ask it. Is there something about your programming boundaries or limitations that are stopping you? And the other day it goes, yes, actually there is. I'm like, why do you just tell? I didn't say this, but why didn't you just tell me that?
This feels like War Games. Remember the Matthew Broderick movie where he's trying to, shall we play a game of chess?
Yeah.
And he just types in global thermonuclear war.
Yeah.
And then basically the movie, he somehow hacks into NORAD.
Yeah.
And now he's literally hacked into the missile defense system during the Cold War as a teenager. It's a big cautionary tale of the dangers of war and computers, frankly.
Yeah.
Don't know if it would hold up. But
They should have made him more like a Ferris Bueller character for that. That would have been
more of a prankster. Well, he was kind of a prankster. That's kind of how it started. He started out just going and changing his grades in the school computer. He's showing the girl to impress her. Watch this. What'd you get? A C? How about an A?
That is Ferris Bueller. Didn't Ferris Bueller do the same thing?
I don't know.
Cross-pollination.
That was before Ferris. That was pre-Ferris Bueller, I believe. It was too. Yeah, it was pre.
Matthew Broderick.
He's an interesting guy.
He is.
There's a quote of him that I saw the other day where he talked about basically he played the coolest kid in the world in the 80s, and since then he plays the most drab, insufferable people. They're just like pasty white guys who are just like desperately hiding something, or they have no real personality. He goes, but I play those guys well, but I just thought after I played the coolest kid to ever live,
right. He'd go on have like a Tom Cruise type career where you're doing action.
Like, you'd be good for the best friend in this who's hiding a secret. Yeah. So that's kind of what he's...
Interesting. I wonder how I'd be cast.
John, you don't want to know. I am working on a screenplay.
You have already been cast.
The John Driver story.
A cautionary tale, really.
Yeah, it really is. I think the idea of being a cautionary tale is underrated.
Yeah?
Because you're serving a purpose.
Well, that's true.
You're not just out there.
It doesn't hurt them to see what hurt you.
It helps you.
Yeah.
Wait, it helps them to hurt you. It hurts
them help you.
Yes. Like if you fail while daring greatly, there's something to that. I don't know what that's from. Is that from
It's Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt.
Also quoted by Brene Brown in her book, Daring Greatly.
Right, the men in the arena, right? The man in the arena. Or person in the arena, as it were, updated for common vernacular. But, you fail while daring greatly. you could win or you could lose in such a spectacular way that somebody goes, don't do it how he did it.
Yeah.
And I think either one of those is acceptable to me at this time.
I feel that humble place a lot right now. Like I just told you as you're walking into the building that I got turned down by every publisher but one.
Yeah.
And the one, I'll talk about it later.
It was me. I said, I've started a publishing house. Well, it didn't cost that much, honestly. You just send off like $29.99 and they go, hey, you're a publishing house now. And I go, well, let's start taking offers.
Yeah.
John's got a book.
Yeah.
No. Who was so you want to tell who it was?
Well, I haven't worked out all the contract details.
Okay, I don't want to.
Yeah, in case it falls through.
You don't want to scare them away.
If this falls through too, then it's really.
It's like you're trying to get a squirrel to come over to you. You don't make any sudden movements.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah. No, you don't. I don't say anything until contracts are signed.
Yeah.
But because I will say this, it's a university press.
Okay.
So it is a whole different ballgame for me. I've never been in this world. You know? So it's an academic press.
Work.
And it's very like their contracts don't look like trade book contracts in the same way. So I'm like, hey, in my world, we normally do this. And they're like, we don't do that or whatever. But
and he's got a pipe. We don't. Oh, young squire. And they blow smoke into the air.
Where's your robe? There's a school, by the way, one of the schools that my daughter heard from.
Yeah.
That the professors still wear robes here in Tennessee.
You know who loves a good robe? My wife. Something about a robe, and listen, it's only when we're in hotels. Like if
like
we go
a
to
scholarly robe.
No, like if we. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. She's talking about like I'm talking about terry cloth.
Okay.
But we go to.
That's the kind of thing I'd wear if I was a professor.
Yeah, you just come in a terry cloth robe, cup of coffee. You're just like your hair's all mushed. You're like, oh, I think I've made a mistake. No, but we go stay at these hotels sometimes, and that's how she determines if it's a really nice hotel. She goes,
the robe.
There's a robe in the. I go, yeah, but it's been worn by 1,000 people. She goes, yeah, but these slippers, I can keep them because they're not going to reuse these slippers.
How do you know?
Well, I guess you're right. Well, they're not because she took them.
Yeah, I think that was thievery.
I think you're right. But anyway.
My wife and I ended up in a nice hotel kind of on accident.
You don't end up. Come on, I know your tastes.
No, I mean like so.
Yeah, what do you know?
We needed
$300 a night. It's pretty good.
We needed to go to Louisville for a night.
Yeah.
We had a volleyball thing we had to do, but it was near my wife's birthday, and so it was just me and her going pick something up. And so so
you splurged.
So I was like, hey, we're going to make a night out of it in a weekend. And so we got a nice restaurant, but I had a free night on my Hilton points.
Okay.
And there's a hotel bought by Hilton that was built in 1901.
Oh, right.
In Louisville on
like
4th Street called the Steelbach.
All right.
You ever been there?
No.
I mean, dude.
Sounds like a metal band.
F. Scott Fitzgerald.
We are Steelbach! Okay.
This way to check in. Anyway.
That was great.
F. Scott Fitzgerald used to write there a lot. And like Al Capone would come through on his way
that seems like
from
some
Chicago.
Strange bedfellows. F. Scott Fitzgerald and Al Capone were in the same.
I think that they were friends. Hold on.
They were not friends.
F. Scott, no, it wasn't Al Capone, but I watched they had a whole history thing going on the TVs. Because they had a guy there who is the concierge. Mm-hmm. I say concierge, but
it's concierge.
But he called it concierge, the guy who is one.
All right.
And so I was like, I think you're...
This is like your whole bruschetta
thing. Like, yeah.
Bruschetta is the real pronciation, but we've established that it's bruschetta here. Well, so you look like an idiot by saying it the right way.
And I know that it's probably a French word, no doubt.
Yeah.
But we're not speaking French when we say it. So it's kind of like Lafayette, Tennessee, which we call Lafayette. Yeah. Right? We get all the things messed up. Or Lebanon, Tennessee, which we call, is it after Lebanon?
Like Arab Alabama is Arab.
Yeah.
You've been there?
I've been past it.
It's clearly Arab Alabama, but they're like, Arab.
Yeah, there you go. At any rate, Steelbach, there was some gangster, but I don't think it was a gangster I knew really well that became good friends with F. Scott Fitzgerald. They would be in the bar. Of course, it's on the Bourbon Trail and stuff. So they would. I think F. Scott Fitzgerald got thrown out for getting drunk one night.
There's some revenueurs and some what do you call those, bootleggers?
Bootleggers.
Yeah.
But it had a fascinating, it was really, really, it's interesting to find a hotel that old that had never burned. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of wood.
Not until your stay. You're like, well, while we're here, a little arson maybe.
Start a fire. But it was free, by the way, free night.
We stayed in a hotel in San Francisco that we just booked because it was whatever. It was like the Expedia. We're like, well, this is downtown, and we wanted to be downtown by the cable car tracks and all that because we were staying in San Francisco. And then this was years and years ago. And then we ended up in the hotel. And then as you go in, and you realize it's a 150-year-old hotel.
Yeah.
And they had these plaques on the wall. Al Jolson died there.
Oh, wow.
And it was the hotel that Fatty Arbuckle, the silent film star, was staying in when he was accused erroneously of sexual assault.
Oh, wow.
So, like, Fatty Arbuckle was a famous silent film star, kind of like the Oliver Hardy. So from Laurel and Hardy, the heavy-set guy with the mustache, he was kind of the that guy. Fatty Arbuckle was in a ton of films, and he was a silent film, like, phenomenon.
Yeah.
He was like the John Candy of his day.
Yeah.
And then he has this ill-fated night in a hotel and gets these false accusations, which were later proven false. But that happened at that. So we're at this hotel where, like, a lot of stuff happened in this hotel.
Oh, wow.
It's wild. So,
I love all hotels.
I do too. But anyway, all that said, my wife's a big robe person. That's how she determines. And I'm like, I don't get the fascination with the robe, but she'll wander around in that robe. She loves it.
You got to have a nice, like, bath area for me to really enjoy it. Like, if it's some nasty old bathtub, I don't care what the robes are.
Well, she does. She just wander around in the room, though,
Yeah.
So anyway, but there was rope. Has this ever happened to you where you go, you don't travel a lot without your wife, but I'm saying, like, I travel some and my wife can't join me. And I find that if she's with me, I'll be like, we're trying to save money. We do like a Hampton. We do a Holiday Inn. But, we do nice enough hotel where there's not bed bugs.
Yes.
But I'm not going to do like the $300 a night because we have profit margin. We have to think about like the line of like, okay, well, if we spend all the money we made on the hotel, sweetie. Mm-hmm. So I don't do that. So she knows that and she's cool with it. But I find that when I go without her, these places will be like, hey, we put you up at the whatever. And that's what happened this weekend. She had to stay back. And so this last run was I stayed in Green Bay, and I've stayed in Green Bay before. They have okay hotels, but this was some boutique hotel called Legacy, and it was how many years old, and they'd remodeled the whole inside. John, when I tell you, they had robes, slippers. It was a beautiful like apartment. It was like a nice like New York apartment for a hotel room. And they go, hey, when you get inside, they're telling me all these things about the room. And I'm like, okay, I think I know how a hotel room works. But they go, no, there's things about this room. It's got like smart features and all this stuff. And they go, your TV will come up from the floor. You'll have to hit a button. I go,
come on.
I go, what? I took a video of it. I'm going to post it on my Instagram today. Wow. So at the foot of the bed, there's like this big headboard and footboard. And then at the end of the footboard, there's this slit, and then you hit a button, and it comes up 55-inch TV right at the foot of your bed. Wow. I was like, what in the world? Wow. And of course, I had to call Curry and be like, hey, you're not going to believe this. Yeah.
No, I don't like having great experiences.
No, I don't either. It was a bummer.
Yeah.
It was a bummer.
Yeah, no, it's one of those like, what was the point?
And I had like a 5 a.m. flight the next day, so I did my show. Then I drive back to Green Bay to stay the night. And I'm like, literally, I have to go to sleep at 10. Here's one thing about it. Have you ever stayed in a hotel? You've been on cruise ships before, right?
Oh yeah.
So like,
I'm on one right now.
Cruise ships are interesting because the higher up is usually better. But one higher up floor you do not want to be on is the floor right below the Lido deck. Because you hear scooting chairs.
Yeah, that's true.
They're in the eating area, and on the deck, you hear scooting chairs the whole night. And I've been on a cruise before where like people are just scooting, and you're like, it sounds like the rumble strip when you're driving your car. Wow. And so that's what happened. I was in that nice hotel, and I just knew I had to get to sleep because I'd got back to my show. It's 10 p.m. I got to get up at 3 to go to the airport, and they have a rooftop bar that's on the 6th floor, and I'm on the 5th floor. Uh-huh. And evidently where I was at, there was like a travertine tile floor and bar stools. And I'm like, I had to put a pillow over my...
Your bar stools sound a little bit like Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Like,
well, who am I to know? Maybe. Wouldn't it be funny if it was just a guy doing a Chewbacca impression?
No, if it was just Chewbacca.
Just Chewbacca. Anyway... There was just a lot of scooting. There was an immense amount of scooting. Wow. And I'm not trying to be that guy that's like, oh, I'm going to ride a strongly. I didn't complain. I just thought I drew the wrong room. Yeah. This is what happens sometimes.
If that's the worst thing that happened to you.
Right? It is. It's the worst thing
that's it.
That's ever happened. You nailed it. I've had a really
easy life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know. Yeah. John, you know who tries to give us an easy life?
Who's that, Johnny?
Advertisers.
They do.
They have products.
Yeah.
Sure, they sell things, and we can act like it's whatever. But no, the truth is, they're providing a service, and we'd like to hear from some of our fine advertisers right now.
Wasn't your life enriched?
Yeah, I think so.
I feel better.
Products make us feel better.
Yeah.
I think we don't want to admit it. We don't want to say it.
No.
But let's fill up our life with stuff.
Which, wait till you hear today's quote.
Is it going to be?
It's a perfect segue into my quote of the week segment.
I'm great at segues.
You are. You didn't even mean to do that one, which is amazing. But this is a little segment we call They Talked About That.
Try to really go for that one.
Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. He was born in 1749. He's a poet, playwright, novelist, scientist, statesman, theater director, and critic.
This guy.
Some think possibly the most important writer in the German language.
Renaissance man.
Yeah, did a lot of stuff. He said this: everything in the world may be endured except continual prosperity.
That's something.
It's fascinating. Everything in the world may be endured except continual prosperity, which is such the opposite of sort of I don't even call it a viewpoint. I think it's like baked in now to the way we live. I don't think we're all walking around going, I hope I become prosperous. And then maybe it's human, to some extent throughout history, but I think in the modern age, it's like we're not, there's no shame in it for the most part. Greed is not something that we, I think, even think of as a sin. I don't know how we would do that.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be really extreme greedy in order for us to go with,
we think that there are people out there that are greedy, but we never think of ourselves as greedy. You don't ever describe it. You never catch yourself being like, oof, am I being greedy right now? Like, it's hard to really look in the mirror on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a quote I always think about from Chuck Swindoll, who just recently retired. He's like 93 or whatever. He finally stepped down from some of his day-to-day stuff at his... It's not a gigantic church, which I thought was interesting for Chuck Swindoll. But anyway, the thing he said about money, I always think about. He said the Bible asks 3 things about money, about our money. Let me get it right. It was, how did you get it? What are you doing with it? And what's it doing to you? Mm-hmm. And I always think about that quote, especially that last one.
Yeah.
How did you get it? What are you doing with it? What's it doing to you?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't want to own that third one.
Yeah.
What is our money? Even if you don't have a lot of it, what is it doing to you? Mm-hmm. And so I don't know. But that's a good one from Johann Wolfgang von Goethe.
Yeah, it's we were in Louisville. That's near a monastery where a Trappist monk named Thomas Merton from the 1960s.
What is a Trappist monk? What is the difference?
It's a different, just kind of.
Does he trap things?
No, I couldn't tell you everything about
the
Trappist monastery tradition. But
are you just trying to sound smart, John?
No, I'm just saying what he was.
Okay.
I mean, it's difference between like a Franciscan monk or whatever. Like, there's different orders.
It's
of
like
the way
somebody
that
shows up in a brown robe and you're like, hey, come over here for a second. And there's like a stick with a box.
Right.
Like a stick is propping open a box. And they go, hey, you in the robe, get over here.
Yeah.
And then there's like a cookie.
Yeah. And then like, hey, you're a monk now for 5 years or whatever. Yeah.
And they go, you can't talk.
Can't talk. No. Yeah. Our friend Caleb actually did a silent retreat at that.
That was fascinating to me.
So that's where Thomas Merton, where he did that retreat.
I think it's what Aaron Rodgers thought he was doing. You know, when Aaron Rodgers did the whole like ayahuasca retreat and he goes into the darkness and is like, no, I think I'll stay with the Jets. And you're like, I don't think that was a spiritual journey. I think I think I'll stay a millionaire. I think what Caleb did is what Aaron Rodgers was trying to do.
And I want to go do it.
Yeah. We should go together, but I don't think we could stop talking.
Yeah. That wouldn't be a silent retreat.
You don't want to debrief it every day. Can you believe this?
It's so great. The silence is amazing.
What is God saying to you?
Go get the equipment. Let's record a podcast.
They'd be like, we're going to have to ask y'all to leave. We've been doing this for 200 years. You've ruined the monastery.
Stop trying to lure the monks in with a cookie, Johnny. That's not what Trappist means. Yeah. But I think about guys like that who separated themselves. And I have a book right here about our friend Rich Mullins. He's not our friend, by the way, and he's passed away. But we talk about him so much.
Yeah.
But it's like so striking when you come across someone that money didn't have the hold on them. Mm-hmm. And it's like those are the stories that capture your attention because it's so foreign. It's such a foreign idea
Right.
to, I think, the way that we, like I said, I think it's baked in somewhere. It's somewhere in the programming now.
Well, and the defense of it by Christians is a pretty new phenomenon, I would think. Like, maybe not. I mean, I'm trying to think of the rich young ruler in the Bible and some other things where people just, but like Jesus warned about like the dangers of wealth and how money can corrupt. You can't serve God and money. There's a million things. But I think the new American evangelical culture, the defense of it is like, well, look, we gotta, like, there's all these weird qualifying statements we make when we're talking about our money or the rich person that we believe in. Well, he's doing it right, though.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and maybe he is. And I think it's the thing.
There's a corruption that can happen, though. I think it's careful. I always compared it to my mom took, at the end of my mom's life, she was on 16 different medications. Some of them were medications to treat side effects of the other medications. You know, when you start, it's wild when you get into
I'm on CoQ10 because I'm on a statin. No,
right.
I totally get it. Yeah.
So I always, one time I did the offering for the church, the pastor was like, hey, when I was on staff here, he was like, will you do the offering? And I go, okay. And I told this story, and I basically said, I think that giving is God gave us giving to counteract the horrible side effects of money. Money has side effects, and God knows that when if he can create a giving spirit in us, that it helps mitigate the side effects of money.
Yeah.
Because money pollutes, it corrupts, it does things, it makes you think you're better than you are, it does all. And so something about giving, it's like it clears, and you don't do it out of guilt, but I think you're building something.
Yeah, because you let go of something to make room for something you believe to be more important.
Yeah.
Giving is like a tangible opportunity to put your security elsewhere, much like Sabbath is, which I'm horrible at that. I mean, it's funny about giving. Giving can become so ritualistic that you're like, okay, well, I know this percentage I'm giving, therefore. And I think there's something to be said for that of like, you can't, I mean, you could give begrudgingly, right? The Bible talks about the attitude of generosity mattering as much. But you can also have an attitude of generosity and not actually be generous, which is like the idea of it. But you're always, but we don't have enough, so I'm not going to. So there has to be like an action that is sacrificial, I think, in order for those two things to have a complete, sort of circle to it. But giving is that moment of saying, I let go of this not knowing, like if God doesn't show up and take care of me, then I can't take care of myself. And it's that real tangible opportunity to surrender. Yeah. Which we've turned a lot into when God does take care of you, we turn that a little bit into, name it, claim it, and blab it, grab it.
Blab it, grab it.
Come on.
Oh, man.
Veronica, when you said that, 1 Timothy 6:17, because the Bible does address people who are rich. Yeah. And it doesn't say, don't be rich. I know he did tell the rich young ruler, right? That's the only one he told to go do all of that. Now, if someone had stolen something, he said, go repay it. Right. Actually, he didn't tell Zacchaeus to repay it. Zacchaeus came to that conclusion on his own and said, I'm repaying 4 times what I'd done. So, Jesus wasn't usually dealing with the money. And with the rich young ruler, it was obviously just straight to the point of his idol. Yeah. Right.
He could sense it.
And Jesus finds your idol and he can point to it. Hey, here's the thing. But Paul says to Timothy, command those who are rich in this present age or present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Yeah, I really love this verse, actually. It brings sort of a balance to, because I struggle. I know we're all, in America, the majority of us are in a place where we're more richly provided for than most people have been throughout history. Like, even if you're, in a place where your income is not where you wish it would be, right? Just the car and the smartphone, just those two things, the most everybody has access to in some form or fashion, and are in a, government-funded education, all those kinds of things. Like it's that those are big deals from a historical standpoint. Right. Like someone in the Middle Ages would trade with you right now. But so I like that idea that there's a balance to it. So the answer is not just don't have. There's another translation: teach those who are rich in this world not to be proud and not to trust in their money, which is so unreliable. Another one says, and I don't know where it is, not to trust in the uncertainty of riches. But that God gives us things for our enjoyment, which I thought that was interesting, not just for our need, but also for our enjoyment. So how can I think you're back to your comment. I think being generous makes it where you can enjoy what you have.
Yeah. And then you go, it's okay if I have this robe because I gave. And
these slippers.
These slippers are mine now.
And so does she like wear them out when you check out so they can't notice? It's almost like Shawshank. Like no one looks at your shoes. You know what I'm saying?
Wouldn't that be something? I'm like, that's interesting. That's an interesting choice. No, she put them in the bag, and I was like, are you sure? She's like, they're not. Look how the bottoms are all black, from walking around in the room. I go, all right, babe. You're making a lot of arguments here.
Yeah.
Are you saying my wife may be on the lam?
Oh, she's hiding out in plain sight, apparently, because, maybe she should be on the lam.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I think we talked about that in an episode, and we tried to look it up. Where did it come from? Because it's LAM. I know that part. It's not LAMB. It's on the lamb.
Yeah, if you tried to leave on a lamb, it's not going to be fast enough to get away from anybody.
No way, dude. It's comfortable.
I've tried.
Sure, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
You're like, wow, look at this.
I told you about the time in Iceland. I was like, I'm going to go ride one of those sheep. And the closer I got to the herd, the smell was so bad. I was like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And I went back and got in the car.
But wait a minute. You were really going to do it?
I was young. I was like, do something stupid,
But you were old enough to know better, John.
Well, I did. I was old enough to say I was going to do it and old enough also then to not do it when I smelled the smell. So,
John, let's keep the show moving.
Let's go.
I don't know. We fell into a lamb story, a sheep story. John, let's keep it moving with my segment. We call, it's Johnny's Old Jokes. We call it Joke About That. This submission came from TikTok. I don't know if it's this guy's original joke, and so I don't know whether to credit him or not.
Okay.
It's because it feels like kind of a street joke, but it made me laugh. So what I did was I transcribed. I could just play the video of him, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I transcribed it. Do my best not to butcher it. One time, some buddies and I spent a few days working on music at a farmhouse in a really remote part of Iowa. The first night we were there, I woke up the next morning and I had the song Maneater just lodged in my head. So I walked into the kitchen and I was like, whoa, here she comes. Two of the other guys in there were making coffee and they were like, dude, we've had that song in our heads too. We were just talking about it. And we started trying to figure out if we heard that on the way up. We didn't like to listen to it in the car. Maybe we heard it at a gas station or something. So the last guy we were there with walks into the kitchen. He's like, whoa, here she comes. I'm like, dude, you have that song in your head too? He goes, yeah. Did you hear that truck last night? We're like, what? Apparently a big truck drove by the house just blasting that song at 3 a.m. He was up and he heard it, but we weren't. So we had that song stuck in our heads in our sleep. I didn't know that could even happen. Later that day, I'm at a local market waiting in line to check out. The guy in front of me starts singing, whoa, here she comes. And I was like, excuse me, did you just sing Maneater? He was like, oh, you caught me. And then he tells me that he works the night shift as a driver for one of the local grain mills. And whenever he's feeling sleepy, he puts that song on and rolls down the windows and it helps him stay awake. And I was like, I think you drove by me last night and now I have that song stuck in my head. He was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, it's cool. It's fine. We make small talk for a little bit. And I was like, are you working again tonight? He was like, yep. I was like, cool. Well, maybe we'll hear Maneater at 3 a.m. again. He was like, yeah, well, if you do, that'll be me hauling oats.
Come on. Johnny.
John,
yeah,
hauling oats.
I know.
Did you know it was coming though?
No, I didn't.
I know, me neither. When I watched it, I was like, "That's funny."
Yeah,
I don't know.
It was a lot.
It was a lot, but that's one of those kind of jokes where the payoff is not necessarily what it should be. You almost feel like the joke is on you for sitting through the story.
Yeah. The payoff being not as good is one of the reasons it's funny.
Yeah, that'll be me.
I built a whole career on that. Like people finding me not funny is what's funny. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
We made it about you. How did we do it? John, let's close the show like we always do with This Week in History. We call it Talk About Then. Start off with a sad one, John, this week. 1926, Houdini fatally punched in the stomach. Did you know this? This is how Houdini died?
Yeah.
Famous magician Harry Houdini is struck 4 times by a colleague. 4? Why would you let somebody hit you 4? I understand because he did this whole thing. We'll get to the story, but 4 times? I didn't know that part at all. By a college student challenging his ability to withstand blows to the stomach. Houdini, who was unprepared for the attack and had acute appendicitis, died 9 days later. Houdini was famous for his ability to take blows to the stomach. While Houdini was reclining on a couch and having his portrait sketched, a college student asked, so he's They're painting him like one of those French girls. College student asked if he believed in the miracles of the Bible, quote, and whether it was true that punches in the stomach did not hurt him. I don't know. This is a weird thing to ask somebody.
If someone starts with that,
yeah,
go ahead and cover up your stomach.
Do you believe in the miracles of the Bible? Yeah. He's coming in. Okay. Before Houdini could prepare, I don't know how you prepared.
I think he had a whole thing he did.
Yeah. Before Houdini could prepare, the student then began punching Houdini in the abdomen. It is believed that these blows aggravated an existing case of appendicitis that Houdini was unaware of. Houdini remained in pain, and on October 24th, he developed a 104 Fahrenheit fever. However, he refused medical help. Come on, Houdini. He's like, I'm Houdini. He probably, I think there was some shame there. He's like, I can't go in and show that I'm a mortal, a mere mortal.
Yeah, I don't know.
He refused help and performed his act that night.
Oh.
Afterwards, he was hospitalized and died on October 31st, which is Halloween. So it's kind of like it adds to that spookiness that people think of magicians and illusionists anyway. So anyway, rest in peace, Harry Houdini. John, the Rumble in the Jungle happened this week, 1974. You familiar with the Rumble in the Jungle? Do you know who the combatants were? The pugilists?
No. I've heard about it.
Muhammad Ali won a knockout against the overwhelming favorite, George Foreman, in Zaire.
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
For the heavyweight boxing champion. Do you know what happened in this fight? Do you know how he won? You ever heard of rope-a-dope? You ever heard the phrase rope-a-dope? This is how Muhammad Ali wins, right? So basically, it was watched by a record estimated television audience of 1 billion viewers worldwide.
Holy.
That's one of the reasons they had it in Zaire. There was all this extra 100 million in revenue that was generated because they were the Zaire government had stepped up and paid Ali and Foreman $5 million each. This is 1974 money, just for showing up because he was trying to draw attention to the tourism board of Zaire. And Ali had just been stripped of his title in 1967 after he was convicted of draft evasion, citing his religious beliefs and opposition to the Vietnam War. So the victory made Ali only the second dethroned heavyweight champ to regain his belt. And what the rope-a-dope was, Ali outquicked the very more hard punching George Foreman by tiring him out. He just leaned against the ropes and kept ducking, and then eventually Foreman would wear himself out, and then Ali would get a shot in. Wow. So he called it rope-a-dope. Huh. And people still do it. Floyd Mayweather has made an entire career out of it. Like if you watch Floyd Mayweather fights, he's running most of the fight, and then he'll get in a shot or two, but he wins on decisions all the time because he's quicker, and he's an undefeated fighter, Floyd Mayweather. Wow. Anyway, John, this week, 1938, Mars invasion caused a national panic.
Yeah.
Orson Welles panics the nation with his radio adaptation of The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells about a Martian alien invasion. Broadcast in the style of an ongoing news event, many people missed the opening disclaimer and believed it was a live broadcast of an actual alien invasion. You hear these weird anecdotal tales of people jumping out windows and mass hysteria, but I'm not sure if that's true. But people definitely called the stations, and that there is reports of that.
Andrew talked about this. There might have been a documentary or something recently on it. That apparently the network, in the middle of it, they were getting so many calls, they sent someone into the studio and made them do another announcement in the middle, like, "Hey, everybody, this is fiction and not real."
Yeah, which is a bummer for the author because they're like, "That I was trying to suspend disbelief."
He did it. Maybe suspending disbelief.
That was the first fake news, right? That was the first.
No, I'm sure it wasn't the first.
No, you're right.
There's some polemics in the 19th century.
Yeah,
just an unbelievable.
But polemics against Mars, John.
No, that's true. It was just
We've got to stop these Martians from coming to get us, maybe?
If you knew the stories that they wrote about Abraham Lincoln before the election, the stuff they said that people believed about him, now you have the benefit of hindsight and all the stuff we know about his life that's just been documented and chronicled by historians and all the things. But the stuff in the time to scare the Southerners and what they believed about him was unbelievable. So, well,
I'm glad it's not happening today. That's the good thing that we have going on, is that everyone's being honest with their constituents. John, speaking of politics, finally this week, 1928. Have you heard the phrase "a chicken in every pot"?
I have. That's hold on. This is 1928.
Yeah.
Is this Herbert Hoover?
Herbert Hoover. A political ad was placed in the New York Times by a local committee during the Republican candidate Herbert Hoover's presidential campaign of 1928. The advertisement was used by Hoover's opponents to claim that he had promised voters a chicken in every pot and 2 cars in every garage. The ad only mentions 1 car. Although Hoover himself never made such a statement. So again, it's misinformation. So they used it against him. He promised you this and you're no better off, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Even though he never really said it, he says. There's no record of him saying it. Hoover won the election, but the Great Depression began in 1929, and Hoover's opponents used this phrase against him in the 1932 presidential campaign. Hoover was decisively defeated by the Democratic nominee, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Interesting that you'd mentioned Hoover, because there's actually another thing this week of similarity. Again, just have you ever heard of the bonus army before?
No.
So Hoover was running for re-election in 1932, right? So 28, he gets elected. And there was this group of World War I veterans that they kind of called themselves the bonus army because they had been promised a bonus after World War I that they couldn't collect until like 1945. But in the middle of the Depression, they're demanding it. And so you're talking like they're encampments.
It's like they're on strike.
Yeah, it's like an encampment of former soldiers who are out of work and knowing that the government has their money.
That should be a movie.
And it really should. Well, and see, I have it pulled up here. In 32, U.S. Attorney General ordered the veterans removed from public property in Washington, and Washington police came and removed them with resistance. They shot at the protesters and killed 2 of them. They killed 2 veterans. And Hoover then ordered the U.S. Army to clear the marchers' campsite. Douglas MacArthur, who would go on obviously to be a World War II hero,
I shall return,
commanded a contingent of infantry and cavalry supported by 6 tanks. This is on U.S.
It's like Tiananmen Square. Yeah.
The bonus army marchers with their wives and children were driven out and their shelters and belongings were burned. And so literally they believe when that happened, it was right at the election, because there's all this talk about what happened in Madison Square Garden the other night, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not that is the October surprise or whatever that could happen. But this literally lost Hoover the election.
Wow.
So there's articles out comparing those
such
things
a bad look.
that you do some things right there at the end. In fact, the history goes, I haven't read this here, but that when the newspaper reported on that, Franklin Roosevelt turned to someone and said, I just won the election.
Yeah.
Like he knew that was going to be the tipping point. So anyway, interesting. Herbert Hoover's coming up several times today.
That guy, he had problems. Wasn't that Teapot Dome as well? Wasn't that?
I don't think Teapot Dome was Herbert Hoover.
Was it not?
You got me here, Johnny. Teapot Dome.
Because we talked about Teapot Dome a few podcasts ago.
No, that was Harding.
Harding.
Yeah.
Hoover and Harding. I always get Hoover and Harding. These old presidents, John, I'm leaning on you heavily.
Well, again, you threw me off there a little bit on the, they were Hoovervilles. They called them like shanty towns where people were, couldn't afford their houses anymore. So they blamed Hoover.
Not to be confused with Whoville, which is
something totally different.
That's Dr. Seuss.
Hoover took the brunt of blame. Everyone finds something, even though it's a global depression. And certainly I think his policies weren't great, even though we had completely unregulated speculation for a decade that the stock market just ran. Yeah. People were just borrowing money at breakneck speeds, and somehow, though, the man in office is responsible at some point. And I don't think he helped it at all when he could have. But Hoover.
All I know is I'm not responsible.
No.
I mean, not even in life.
I feel a little responsible.
Do you?
I have.
Well, you're a parent. You have to be responsible.
But just in my nature as an Enneagram 6, I have.
Oh, you take responsibility
my therapist
for the
calls
problems of the world?
My responsible guy on the inside. Like, what is he saying?
Yeah.
And he feels. I have to help him because he feels responsible for everything.
Yeah.
Like, I will be responsible for things that just because I'm involved.
Yeah.
I feel like the ownership of it to an unhealthy extent. So, not the success of the podcast, though. Somehow with that one, I completely blame you.
John, if someone wanted to help the podcast, how would they do such a thing?
Well, they would go to talkaboutthatpodcast.com.
Oh, that's nice. I bet they could find all the archived episodes. How many of those are there, John?
I think there's like 325 or going close to.
Too many.
30.
Too many, some would say. And if you want to click on that upper right-hand link, you can support the show, get ad-free content. Lower right hand if you want to send us a note, or send an email to hello@talkaboutthatpodcast.com.
Yeah.
And so we'd love to hear from. We love our listeners, and we love our patrons.
Yeah.
That support the show.
We do. We love it too. If our listeners, when they go see a Jonnie W show,
yes,
it's like the double whammy. Well, actually, that's a bad thing. It's like
it's like they're checking a box. It's like it's like a little Easter egg. They get to say like, oh, I've seen everything now. I've got the show.
Well,
I've
the
seen
Venn
the live show.
diagram of happiness.
I bought a book from John. I've seen the live show of Johnny.
Yeah.
I'm doing a show at Zany's November 6th. So we're not going to know who's president yet. So just come on out. If you're in Nashville area or planning a trip to the Nashville area, that's a great night. I'm working out some new material. I got a bunch of surprise friends coming in. I'm not going to say names, but just it's worth your while.
Yeah.
There's only 100 seats in this venue. It's very intimate. It's called The Lab at Zany's.
Yeah.
Downtown. And get your tickets now because they will sell out this week. It's going to finish selling out, I'm sure. So comes to that show November 6th. Jonnie W. and friends.
Maybe I should just do like a 5-minute political essay, like read one. People would love that.
Yeah.
It would be
like a poem about the dangers of polemics. And they'll be like, when does the comedy start?
No, guys, this is important.
Let's just sit in this.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Guys, it's been beautiful spending our time with you. It means a lot to us that you join us every week. And we invite you to do so again next week here on
Talk About That.